Hey guys, welcome back. Now, would you look at that? This is my main machine and I haven't cleaned it for a year. I did not think it would be that bad, but look at the amount of dust over here. I mean, wait a second. Look at the amount of dust. That's just from 1 year. I did not think it would get that bad. However, I did not intend to make this video because my computer ran into some issues and I think it's the problem of the power supply. I have a Corsair CX500M power supply inside of here and my computer sometimes crashes and I think it's the power supply. I just wanted to replace the power supply. I didn't really intend to make a video, but now that this is a lot of work, I will make a few videos, smaller videos about cleaning computer, and while I'm at it, I will replace thermal paste on my graphics card. This is an R9 380. We'll replace the heat compound under the Hyper 212 Evo over here. The processor I have is an i5 6500, and a few weeks ago I made a video where I complained about higher CPU temperatures. Not concerning high temperatures, just slightly high temperatures, and for that I'm going to replace the thermal paste. And to replace the power supply, I bought another one, a Be Quiet System Power 9. This is an 80 plus bronze partial modular power supply, totally fine for what I need. Especially I have a shroud over here, and if I show you, you can see there's only one cutout, so you can see the power supply, which is unnecessary. Rest is shroud, and I have to clean this thing, and yeah, that's way more work than I thought it would be. So now I'm going to make a few videos, and I say a few videos because one video replacing thermal paste on graphics card, so small videos, and this one will be the cleanup overall, the removing the dust. I will remove the fans because they need to be removed. If I change the angle of the case, you can see they are completely caked with dust, and they originally were black fans, except for this one over here. This is white. So yeah, that's much more work than I thought it would be. That's what you get for not cleaning your computer for a year. I mean, this is exceptionally bad. I never had this much dust after a year, and I sometimes didn't clean my computer for 2 years. Okay, and here you can see the back side of my case, and there's a lot of dust on the cover. I have to remove that, and the easiest way to do that is to just use some soapy water, and that's a really simple process. You don't have to be really careful because it's metal with some paint. I think this is a proper powder coating, and you just use soapy water and go over it, and everything should be removed. No problem there. So I will do that and come back later when this is done. Oh, and by the way, I also have on the other side one of these see-through ones, and this is funny over here. This is dust from the inside and is caused by the CPU cooler. I think it's not the CPU cooler fan. I think this is because that's the exact position of the CPU, the gap between the CPU fan and the cooler itself. Okay, cleaning the side panels is, as I said, completely easy. Just moist towel, then some paper towels, rub it dry, and you're good to go. Next thing would be to remove all the filters. I got the filter from the top. I removed the power supply filter, and now I need to remove the filter in the front. Typically, the front plates, you go underneath here and just pull it to the front, and then they pop off. And in this situation, in this case, the case, yes, has its filter in the front part over here, and we just have to in here, this small hook, and on the top side the small hook, and then it should pop right out. The front part in this case has no electronics attached, so I'm going to also clean this one just the way I'm going to clean all the dust filters. And that is also pretty simple. Just clean it in the sink. Alright, now we are at my kitchen sink, and I will just get all these things out of here and get them good clean. Just water, maybe a bit of soap, not too much, just a tiny drop. Clean everything off and set it on the side and let it dry. Alright, the front piece and all the filters are cleaned. I dried them off with a paper towel, and they now sit aside until all the moisture is gone, and then I will reinstall them. But in the meantime, I'm going to remove all the fans, the front fans, the back fan, so we can properly clean them. Oh guys, look at that. While I was removing the last fan, what I saw, holy wow, that's a lot of dust. And in here there's the SSD on the top and my hard drive on the bottom. These are the only two native positions for 3.5 inch drives, so the big ones. And yeah, well, that's a lot of dust. Wow. Okay, so the fans are removed, and we will clean the fans first before we move along. So, cleaning the fans is pretty simple. You need a paintbrush that is either new or no paint is coming off. I am using a used one, but there's no paint coming off. I'm using a new toothbrush, so I can get into smaller spaces. And if you want to be really clean, if you want to have really clean PC fans, you need some soapy water, just water with a drop of soap, a towel and some paper towels. But only if you want to get it really clean. And then I will just start with the paintbrush, go in here and remove all the dust, the gunk. And there are many hairs. That's really unfortunate. And look at that, just with the brush itself. So as you can see, the dust is coming right off, and for the most part this is totally fine if you just use paintbrush and toothbrush. You don't have to use water. You always run into the risk that water gets into the motor in here. This is not watertight, it's not water resistant. Splash water can get in, and that would be a disaster, because this will definitely destroy your fan. And I just noticed there is hair going around the shaft for the fan blades, and this is not really good because it adds resistance to the motor. And for some reason, although it's a case with filters, hair got into there, and that's not good. So I will just remove as much hair as possible, and I think I will just use a bit of water to clean the blades further. While I'm at it, I will just clean it completely with water and everything. So get my moist towel, and just go over all the surface area, the fan blades and the body itself. The body is not necessary, and you don't even have to use a moist towel. It's just that the fans then look a bit better. Moist towels are only necessary if you have fans that are really caked in, so they run for 10 years plus. Then you might have to use moist towels to remove the dust. But with fans that run for 5 years, that's, even if they are 5 years old and they were never cleaned, it's unlikely that you need to use water. And now, after I used moist towel, almost looks as new. Now, just a paper towel to remove as much moisture as possible. These fan blades, there's some discoloration. Yeah, from the inside. Oh, I didn't use it from the inside, only from the outside. So inside, and then everything should be okay and really clean. Yep, that's okay. We don't have to overdo it. I mean, using water, as I said, it's just a thing of looks and not necessity. It's only necessary to remove most of the dust, and to also protect your fan from caked in dust, because that adds an imbalance to your fan and can cause it to perform worse or potentially have a slight impact on thermals. Only really fans that are way worse than this actually impact the case temperature. Or if you don't have the right amount of air movement throughout your case, then yes, fans can have a high impact, but not if they look like this. The impact is if the metal mesh, sometimes there's metal mesh in the front, or the filters, if they are completely clogged up by dust, that has an impact on thermals, not the fans if they look like this. So again, use the brush, brush it off, and then use some water to clean them. But I won't show you that. I mean, this was enough. Okay, and that's how they look after cleaning. And as I said, you don't have to use moist towels to clean the fans. Just using the brush is more than enough for performance and to just protect them from being caked into dust. But I decided to just use it. Why not? I mean, it was just 5 minutes, so all 3 fans are ready, and now we can proceed to clean the rest, which is a lot more. Okay, next up, and because I'm going to replace the power supply, I will remove all the power cables from the graphics card mainboard and get them out so I can actually change the power supply. But you don't have to do that if you clean your computer, obviously. In this case, with these connectors, you can just again use a brush, and as you can see, dust comes right off, and you shouldn't do anything else but use a paintbrush to remove the dust, because these are the power connectors. You can't use water on them. You could use water on the cable itself, but it's so risky to have water within your system, so I don't recommend you do that. Just use a brush and get it off. What you could do What is a bit safer is using one of these moist paper thingies that you can buy. But again, it's still moisture. You can clean off the cables, but I wouldn't do that. It's just risky, and I don't know why I just tried to remove this. Okay, so I will remove the power connectors. You don't have to do that. You can just use a brush like over here. Just remove the power connector, and I need some light. Alright, so the power connector over here, and then just use a brush and clean it off. You can clean off the dust of the VRM coolers over here and in here, and you can see even one of these small brushes fits inside. Remove the dust. You don't have to take care of static, because it's not a big deal, honestly. The whole thing that you always hear about static electricity and how it damages components. Yes, components can be damaged, but it's more like if your system, for example, if your system runs, and that's why these ESD bracelets are used for servers. If the server runs and you were to touch anything inside, a electrostatic discharge, an ESD, could go into the system and interrupt the clock, which then would cause a glitch and your server could crash. But with these computers, if they crash, it's not a big deal. Oh man, look at that. So I just pulled the power cables out, and you can see here's a lot of dust. And if you don't want to remove your power supply, or you don't clean for looks, then just get a vacuum in and remove everything, or maybe a paper towel, a dry paper towel, and try to remove the dust. That's totally fine. Just remove it so it doesn't kick into onto the chassis, and that would make it not so nice anymore. Essentially, you have to remove dust, everything that obstructs air path, like over here with the two drives. The dust needs to go. Only if you really want to go for looks, use wet towels, but be really careful. I would highly recommend then to remove the drives and your power supply, so you run into so there's no chance that water gets into your drives or the power supply. Power supply could be destroyed. Same for your hard drives and SSD. And if your SSD or hard drive is gone, data recovery is really expensive. So be careful in this area over here, and just use a vacuum. Okay, after the power supply is removed, I will now remove the SSD and hard drive that are still in the caddies, and just again use a painter's brush to remove everything. I won't use any moisture, anything. I don't want to risk my hard drive and SSD, so just dry cleaning, nothing else. And because everything is removed under here, any electronics, and I will tuck the cables away, especially these connectors need to be protected. I will just vacuum it out and use a moist towel to clean this area, because now that everything is removed, I run into no risk, and I will use dry towels, dry paper towels, to remove the moisture, and then let it sit for a while and before I will install rest. Oh, that's really nasty. And yeah, here's something interesting, by the way. This is a Western Digital Black Edition. Okay, so the thing is, if I remember correctly, this thing is really old. Let's see. As you can see here, this drive dates back to mid of 2012. And that's a really old drive, and it just still works so well. I really like Western Digital Black Edition cards, hard drives, not cards. What was I thinking? This thing is so old. It's amazing. Okay, but here's something that you have to be really careful of, that actually has an impact if an electrostatic discharge goes in. That is your SSD and your hard drive, or if you use a brush, you introduce statics. So the thing is, the body, the outer shell of an SSD and a hard drive, they act as a Faraday cage. So no static is actually going in there. But the problem is, if you clean them and go to the connectors, you can actually introduce some static into the connectors. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that it will die, but the chance is high that you damage something inside. Nowadays, these kind of electronics, they do have fail-safe systems and everything, but as you don't have to clean them, if you want to clean them, use a microfiber cloth, something like this, and just gently go over it, and don't really use brush and go wildly over it. Chances are low, but they do exist, so I'm not taking any chance, and I'm just removing dust from the body and the cage, and that's it. Now, to properly clean the graphics card, I will remove it. You could just let it in there and get your fingers with a dry towel between the cooler and the backplate of the graphics card and remove the dust, or blow the dust just off with something. What you should not do is, in this case, use brushes. I mean, you could, but there's just not enough space between the cooler and your graphics card. And I would recommend you just remove the graphics card and clean off the dust, blow the heatsink out, and reinstall it. This is just the easiest way, in my opinion, and it's not that much more time consuming. And in my case, it's really beneficial because I'm going to replace the thermal paste. Now the graphics card is removed, and I will try to get rid of all the dust. And if we turn it around, the heatsink itself, all these fins, they are pretty clean except for a bit of dust over here and a bit of dust over here. I don't know if you can actually see that. Yeah, you can. And yeah, it's essentially just the stuff over here. If your card is really dirty, you can just get some pressurized air and blow in everywhere to remove it. And the back side I will just use, I think I'm going to use a brush now that there's nothing obstructing me. Again, be careful on the contacts. Yeah, I think I will just use a brush and get rid of it. And a dry paper towel. No moist towels because there are holes in the back plate, and if you don't have a back plate, I mean, don't use anything moist near to your graphics card. You can remove the shroud and clean it off with a moist towel and everything, but not while it's still attached to the graphics card itself, and don't reinstall it before it's completely dry. I mean, that's obvious, right? Just using my brush will get rid of most of the dust. I think, yeah, that's just a bit. There's some stains of some sort. So in this case where you have some stains and you want to clean your graphics card, one thing you can use is an alcohol, a high percent alcohol, like 90%, 95%, 99%, because you can clean it with moist alcohol towel, and the alcohol would just evaporate before it does any damage. So that's something I'm going to do with the backplate. Okay, I just decided against replacing my thermal paste right now because I didn't do any benchmark for neither CPU nor GPU before this. I mean, this video wasn't really planned, so I'm going to do this in separate videos where I want to show the before and after. And for now, we will just proceed the cleanup. And the next thing I will do is clean this area over here. And this area you have to be careful, but you can use a moist towel to remove the dust. What you have to be careful of is not touching your main board. Touching your main board is not good, but beside that you can clean everything with a moist towel. And also, cleaning like this is unnecessary. You could just also use a brush and brush it off. This is again more than is actually needed. But brushing it off is also only needed if you want to preserve your case. Cleaning it off like I do right now is just for looks. It's not because of any thermal performance or better component performance. And by the way, yes, I saw this edge of my moist towel just got really close to the setup ports, but luckily I didn't hit them. Otherwise, what you can do, for example, if you get water onto any component or near anything, use an alcohol, a high percent, 95-99% alcohol, and just flush the area. This should get rid of all the moisture. And as this computer is right now not powered, there's no risk of a short. The only power that is in here is with this battery over here, which preserves data inside the BIOS. Just if you get anything wet onto electronics, not only computers, use high percentage alcohol and flush the area. Don't use too much, just a tiny amount, and it should get rid of all the moisture. So I will now proceed cleaning it a bit better, and then we will do the last thing, that is the CPU cooler. Okay, I don't know what just happened. I hope I didn't lose the footage. I removed this RAM stick over here and cleaned off the dust, and removed the CPU fan. And with the Hybrid 212 Evo, there are just these plastic hooks that hook onto the heatsink, and look at that. Now this fan will get the same treatment as the other fans got, so I won't show you that, but we can take a look at the heatsink itself in a moment, because that's nasty. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh my god. That's a lot of dust. So what I'm going to do right now, because I have enough space over here, we'll use a vacuum cleaner. But if your case is a bit more refined and you can fit in a vacuum, then just use again some canned air and blow it out. And under here there's a lot of dust. I will just try to remove it. And I think for this area over here I'm going to use some canned air, because I can't get in there with anything else, and I don't want to go in there with a brush in the CPU area. Okay, so there's so much dust inside this heatsink that I decided to use some canned air and blow it out, and let's see how much comes actually out. Not so much. Well, oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming out actually. Let's see. Oh yeah. I hope you guys can see that, but there's actually a lot coming out. And I will just use it to also remove dust from the main board. Again, this is just for looks and not a necessity. And this thing, oh wow, this is cold. Alright, now this is clean. Now I have to clean the CPU fan, and after this is done we can reassemble it, and I can finally see if the power supply was actually a problem. So I hope you liked this unplanned video. I think the result is phenomenal. All the components look really good, and it's now clean. Now there's still a bit of dust inside, because yeah, it's not that necessary to remove all the dust, and you are fighting a war that you will never win. However, I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please leave a like, comment down below, and other than that, thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!